Hello, Mass Effect fans. I actually have some great news today. I have some real information to share with you all, and quite a bit of it. 4 pages of it, in fact. And where did this information come from? Well, not HorrorCon, that's for sure. It actually came from N7 Day, and as many of you might know, N7 Day is a play on words of, obviously, N7, the highest rank in the Alliance Special Forces, but N7 stands for November 7th. And on every November 7th, Bioware gives us some Mass Effect related news, lately regarding the new Mass Effect game. Last year, Bioware shared with us these images of them developing the new Mass Effect, and this was exciting because it was actually the first glimpse we've had of any images of the game. While the images themselves were small and didn't show much, they did give us some sort of insight of what to think about of what the next Mass Effect game may look like. But this year was astounding. They gave us about an hour Twitchcast on twitch.com. A Twitchcast is pretty much a podcast, and many fans focus on the 7 concept art images that they gave us. And well, these images were pretty amazing and did offer some insight. I watched this podcast about 4 or 5 times and took notes, and as I said, I have about 4 or 5 pages of notes to share with you all. They gave us a lot of insight and bits and tidbits and tiddly-widdly didbits of information into the next Mass Effect game, and I've covered and surveyed all of it and thought about it. In this video, I'm going to share with you any thoughts I may have or insights, and the facts I gathered about what might be in the next Mass Effect game, and what is pretty much confirmed in the next Mass Effect game by what they said in this Twitchcast. And I listened to your feedback about my previous video, so I'll try to keep this video a bit shorter. As I said, I have a lot to share, so just stick with it and here we go. No more calibrating, Garrus. Take a step back and let's do this. Now, this information isn't going to be in any specific order, especially because in the podcast, Bioware didn't necessarily give out the information in any specific order. In fact, they gave out hints, so it took a cunning person to listen to what they said to decipher any possible information they may have given you. Now, first, an interesting note on the podcast, both BioWare Edmonton and BioWare Montreal were in attendance. BioWare Edmonton is more or less the quote-unquote headquarters of the BioWare franchise, while BioWare Montreal is the studio actually developing Mass Effect. They all work hand in hand. BioWare Edmonton was working on Dragon Age Inquisition, and now that Inquisition is released, BioWare Edmonton is actually helping BioWare Montreal with the development of Mass Effect. Now to get to the part you've all been waiting for, the information. First of all, BioWare has been stressing this fact throughout the entire podcast. The fact that exploration is one of the main pillars and major focuses of this game. Exploration, exploration, exploration. They kept saying the word. Now that's not a bad thing. I love exploration, and I love the exploration in the first Mass Effect. If they could take that and mix that with some of the elements of the unique places that you went to in Mass Effect 2 and 3, because let's face it, Mass Effect 1's exploration was driving through empty space most of the time, and finding cool stuff once in a while. Yeah, it was fun, but there could have been more there. Obviously, some planets are going to be empty and not have much on them. That's completely fine. I'm not complaining about that. But the places you did find they did go to were clones of one another, more or less, especially the underground bases. And with that exploration, they mentioned the Mako. They said the Mako handles awesome. It's very fun to drive. It goes fast, you still have the jetpack. One of the BioWare Montreal developers said, you can't explore space on foot. So bringing back vehicles was kind of natural. He said vehicles, plural, meaning more than one. That means even though this new Mako doesn't have a tank turret or any visible weapons, we might have another Mako or vehicle that does. But don't worry about being stuck in a vehicle all the time. Another BioWare Montreal developer said during the podcast, we want to make this game about choice. The Mako is just one choice, one aspect. We don't want to have to force the player to drive all the time. That means even though they have been talking a lot about the Mako recently, that doesn't mean the Mako is a major factor of the game. So don't worry, this isn't Grand Theft Auto Mass Effect. Although that could be kind of fun.
Women, we are free!
Shut the fuck up!
Devs also noted that they want to tie in the exploration sections of the game in with other parts of the game and just not have a, okay, now I'm on the mission, okay, now I'm exploring, now I'm back on the mission, now I'm shopping, now I'm exploring, now back on the mission, and so on. They want to blend the exploration parts of the game in with the missions to make them both feel natural and part of one another. And that's interesting, and I like that. They also noted some of the places we might be exploring, such as ancient vaults and tombs, and unlocking their mysteries and stories through exploring them, and finding new aliens and so on. They even gave this concept art specifically while talking about this fact. They said this place is probably one of the places we'll be exploring. Interesting, I look forward to exploring this place. Almost looks like Geth technology somewhat, but they also said it was a new race. This place belonged to one of the new races. And since obviously you can't explore an old vault or a crypt in a tank, well, at least not most of them, they said we'll be doing a lot of exploring on foot, outside of the Mako or any other vehicle. And because we'll spend a lot of time on foot, we'll have a lot of tools to help our on-foot exploration. One of the developers at Montreal said, "Your character will be skilled and capable, but not a legend or of the level of Commander Shepard. They'll have more tools to help them survive and to aspire to reach that status."
You are the first human Spectre, Commander. This is a great accomplishment for you and your entire species.
What's my first mission?
Now, I like this. I don't like starting off as, "Hey, you're the best person ever and you're in charge of everything, save the world." Well, yeah, that is kinda cool and makes it easier to save the world, but it's not as good as actually starting off as a nobody, maybe even less than a nobody, and then becoming probably the most powerful and influential person in the world, capable of saving the world and then saving whatever you're trying to save, local skating rink or whatever.
The collectors are about to find out what happens when you piss me off.
Basically what I'm trying to say is when you reach legendary status, and you know 100 gameplay hours ago you were a nobody in prison, and now everybody respects you and there's statues of you everywhere and you know that everybody would be dead if it wasn't for you. I mean, it just makes all that much more satisfying than it would be if you started off as the most influential person in the world already. It's another hurdle to overcome and another trophy to hang on your wall. Bioware also noted that when you're exploring, some places may be ruins and not have much action going on, but other places will have a lot of conflict, and the conflict and exploration will go hand in hand as well. That probably means we'll have a blend of scripted occurring moments with blended natural moments, and that would be pretty cool. They also said that the environments will look beautiful and they'll be fun to explore, and that's great. I mean, look at the Frostbite 3 engine and what it's done for Inquisition. That game looks amazing. And the new Mass Effect isn't going to be a cross-gen game. It's only going to be on new consoles and new technology, so the capabilities of the game are much, much more than Dragon Age Inquisition. I'm not downplaying Inquisition, but the ultimate potential of a cross-gen game is greatly held back by the technology of past generation consoles. It's just how it is. You can't fully use the technology of new consoles and new PC hardware if you're trying to make your game run on old tech. Now, cross-gen games are necessary because not everybody can afford the new technology right away, and that's fine, but I'm just stating facts. And since we're still on the topic of exploration, well, Bioware was actually on the topic of exploration almost the entire podcast, which is fine with me. That was the overall theme of their podcast, and that's fine. I love exploration in RPG games. But anyway, back to the fact. They said not only will we be landing on planets and exploring their surfaces, they also said that we'll be exploring space itself. What could that mean? Asteroids, empty floating space stations, adrift spaceships similar to Mass Effect 1 but in a greater detail? That sounds really, really exciting. And while talking about exploring space with your ship, Bioware stated that they took notice of just how much fans adore the Normandy and how much the Normandy meant to them, and they want to try and bring something like that back with the next ship. I don't know what could top the Normandy, but we'll see. I'm excited nonetheless. They said this game will be an epic adventure, but there'll also be a personal journey as well. Obviously, the journey of becoming a legend is one personal journey, but I'm sure there'll be other more personal stories based off the main character's lore and backstory. And we won't be alone in our exploration. We will have companions, and they are a key aspect in the game, each with their own rich backstories and lore, and relationships with these companions will be a key aspect in this game as well, just like previous Mass Effect and pretty much almost all Bioware RPG games. Bioware Montreal also noted that they want to keep players as immersed in the game as possible, so if you're going to bring up a minimap, it's likely your main character, as seen in this concept art, will bring up somewhat of a floating, rotating map in-game, so you're not taking away from the action. No bringing up your minimap in the middle of a firefight anymore. You're more likely to get killed than to find out where those stairs go. And another interesting note was the Bioware developers actually confirmed that there will definitely be new alien races, that these new alien races will have their own styles and architectures to go along with them as well. We can be sure to be visiting and landing in several various alien settlements and cities. Specific attention will also be given to the aliens' cultures and backstories, as specifically noted by the Montreal developers. A couple of these concept arts are actually of a few of the new alien races, settlements, and places. You could see their architecture and the design and get a hint of their personalities based off where they live. And while on the topic of environments, Bioware developers also said that they are bringing back fan-favorite and franchise-specific environments, such as the Presidium, but with a twist. A twist? What could this mean? A twist? Surely that means more than just next-gen upgraded versions of these environments. I guess we'll find out soon enough, huh? And lastly, another thing I noted on what Bioware said was they kind of hinted on the just grand scope of this game. They said exploring new planets will definitely return, which was obvious, but they said it'll be expanded on greatly, which kind of went along with the point I made earlier about all the empty spaces in Mass Effect 1's planets. I guess they truly did notice what fans said and they fixed this issue. That's great and exciting. And lastly, I'd like to give you a quote from one of the developers during the podcast. He said, "It's called Mass Effect, not Tiny Effect. So the game has to be massive." That gets me exciting. I mean, Dragon Age Inquisition is said to have over 150 hours of gameplay. And obviously space is greater in scope than Thetis, which is the setting of Dragon Age, so I am excited. Now, I'm not sure when we'll see new information about this game, but I am entirely certain that we'll see something by January or at the latest February of next year. Maybe not a game release trailer, but images definitely, and more aspect into the actual game itself. Now this rounds up all the information I gathered from the podcast. I hope it answered some questions you may have had to the game, and hopefully it gives you more of an insight into what the game might be. Now this is a lot more than what I was expecting from N7 this year. I was expecting maybe some more developers making the game like last year, maybe some more information given out in the blog, but nothing like this. This gets me excited as to what we'll see soon in the future. Now if you like this video, please like, and if you want to know anything more about Mass Effect, subscribe, because I'll cover the new Mass Effect game as information comes out and update it as soon as I can. Mass Effect is one of my priorities in gaming, and I love this franchise. Thanks for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for my next video, which is going to round up and cover any remaining information floating around out there about the new Mass Effect game. Go ahead and get back to your calibrations. I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite video on the Citadel. Citadel.